Well, it was good to have the guys back in the building, and we had 2 days after the game, and a lot of them came in Saturday and were around Sunday, but kind of start this week off and looking forward to it. And certainly in looking back at the game, there's a number of things that were positive that we can build on, and yet it was good going over with the kids the little things that make a big difference to cause us to either do things well or not do things well. So every game you got to grow, and you got to get better, learn from what happened, be it positive or negative, and so don't subscribe to a team should make the most improvement from game 1 to game 2. I think if you're going to be a good team, you got to keep growing every chance you can. So it was good to get this week started.
Jason. Paul, you guys were one of the least penalized teams last season, but you had a lot on Friday. Why do you think that is, and how important is that to clean up?
Well, I think it's certainly the pre-snap penalties. You try to minimize. You really like to eliminate them, but you want to certainly minimize them. And we had a false start, and we had 2. Defensively we jumped, and then we had the 2 blocks in the back on the kicking game, and those are bigger penalties than any other thing because of the swing of yards. They end up being 30-yard penalties instead of 10 or 15 or 5. But not one kid went and tried to. This would be a good time to commit a foul. I don't believe that, but we've got to do a better job. We got to clean it up, and it starts with just guys being accountable, not being anxious. Certainly, in the end, it's too many, right? And we've got to address that. But I don't think the kid tried to do it. This is it, 3rd and 11. I'm going to jump off sides. This would be a good time for it. So you just got to keep coaching them.
Well, we talked to Dietzen after the game, and he talked about missing time in camp just to kind of get nursed through. But he got a lot of snaps in that game. I'm just curious what you saw from him, what you went with him, especially when you replaced Capoy, and John got a really long stretch of series after series after series.
Yeah, he was. It was nice today to see him bouncing around because John has gone through some different areas where he's missed some time. So it was good to see him play the number of snaps that he did, and then I thought really he had a bounce in it. It felt good after the game. I was one of the guys, you certainly don't check in on every kid right after the game, but that's one that I found myself wanting to see how you're feeling. And so it was good that he did it. We think John's a good football player, and yet there is value to camp. And I think there was some of those things that he had to work through, but it's it was good for so many of our players to get the snaps, and there's a different field of games. There's an urgency to it, and you spend a lot of time. We just came out of camp and probably had 1,200 to 1,500 snaps, and I think there's a time in camp where I've got the next play to correct what I did. Now you go into a game, and I think we're in the low 70s offensively and defensively. You don't have as many of those, so I think there's an urgency to each one of them. The ramifications are a little bit more, and so learning how to play, and even with some of the veterans that have played, we just got to keep improving there.
Paul, what kind of mismatches can the 3 tight end sets you guys are running on offense create, both in the running game and the passing game?
It depends on the team that you're playing and how they're choosing to defend it. So there's a number of things. If you're just talking football, that you got a chance to make a longer edge. So there's more gaps to cancel. If they substitute different body types, then you could maybe take advantage of that. Each team, how they choose to defend it, can open up something that you think now might be an advantage for you, or it can take away something that, okay, we're not going to do that. So you don't know until you face a team and what's their strategy to it.
Hey, Paul, I think you have, 14, 15 starters back from last year, but you also have a lot of youth and relative inexperience at some key positions, especially skill positions. Wondering what kind of challenges those roster dynamics present to the coaching staff, particularly early in the season.
Yeah, I don't know. I think every year you've got different team dynamics because of the people involved, and so you just try to manage it the best you can. I don't really know how to answer the question in the sense that you kind of know how you should coach. I think you know, and you keep learning how to coach this team. And sometimes it's as simple as veterans can handle this and young guys can't. But often it's what this individual can handle. You know, that I guess my point is just because they played a lot doesn't mean they can do all this much more. And just because they haven't played a lot, that you have to keep it really small or minimize it. So I like the fact that I feel like our coaches, I think we have a pretty good beat on the kids we have, but there's a number of, you know, for the instance of all the kids that played the first snaps, you know, how do they handle the game? You know, we think we had a pretty good idea who they are leading up to it, but that's good for us to go through that first game and you know, this kid or this group can handle this adjustment. We're probably better off doing something a little bit different with another group. So I think it's our job just to figure out how to manage people. And I feel pretty good about the group that we have in trying to do that.
I have a couple questions. First of all, could you assess the run game, and what are some of the things you learned and need to learn from what transpired Saturday or Friday night?
Yeah, I think that in the run game, you know, we certainly had some good plays, but we felt like we left a lot of yards out there, that we didn't maximize the opportunities we had. And you know, we spent some time with them this morning. You know, the smallest of details, be it a split by a lineman or the back being patient enough to see it. I felt like we, you know, each back kind of had a couple that they just didn't hit the where it's designed to go. And we don't know, but you got a chance for it to be bigger. And I think we had a couple mental mistakes that didn't give us a chance at all. And so it was good pointing that out, that, again, like we're talking about penalties, no one tried to do it, but just how we all are counting on each other. And so I thought that there were some good runs in the game, and I thought the kids played hard, but some of those small details that really make it big, we were missing.
What did you think of Taylor? And I see Bradrick's on the injury list.
Yeah, he did some stuff, so we'll see on that, on
Okay.
Brad. But
Okay, but what'd you see from Taylor, and are you comfortable going forward using three guys like that?
yeah, I thought that each guy had their moments, and I thought that one thing about Jonathan, that typically a freshman first game, and I know he was excited, can sometimes speed up everything. And yet I thought he had a pretty good tempo to him. You know, I was impressed with that. And I think Brad, you know, certainly one of the things that we like about him is when he takes it north and south, you know, when he can hit a hole. And I thought that there was some times where he got a little bit ahead of it, you know, but both had some really good moments in it. And then I thought, you know, Chryst was in a little bit more on third down. Chryst was, I thought, kind of bouncy a little bit, and we got to settle him down. And part of that may be, you know, hadn't played, and he was really, you know, he and Nick Nelson were really, they were excited. They're looking forward to it. You know, I was talking to Nick before the game, and you know, I think it was 2015 last time he played. You know, he's talking about when we were at the hotel. He goes, I haven't been at a team hotel since, you know. So you forget that they're going through these individually, these different thoughts and all that. So all did some good things, the three backs, but I think certainly each one had those moments. Like, and I think a lot of it with Brad and Chryst, I thought it was a little bit rushing it.
Yes.
Paul, in what areas have Quintez and A.J. Taylor specifically improved since last year beyond just having an opportunity that give them a chance to open up the field for the offense this year?
I think the biggest area of improvement that Q and AJ have is confidence in themselves. And I think part of that comes from knowledge of what they're doing. And I think they know what better to expect. Last year, how does a game go? How will I feel? What's it? So I think they've experienced a little bit, but I think they both kind of have earned that confidence by working. And so I think they're more relaxed because they have a more genuine confidence in themselves.
Jason. Coach, Xander Neville played a lot of snaps on Friday. How important is he to what you want to do offensively this year?
I think Z's really important. He's earned the right to play, and he gives us great energy, and it's been fun to see him over this year and probably a couple of weeks maybe learning the position. And I think you saw it, even what he means to the team. There was a lot of guys that were excited when he scored, and I think you see that when other teammates, it's a guy that they know works and they appreciate what he does, and to get a moment like that, I think kind of is reflective of how we as coaches feel that he brings a lot of value to this team.
Jeff. Paul, back to the young wide receivers for a second. In your experience, what are some of the stumbling blocks, whether it's running precise routes, whether it's knowing the playbook, just the simplest things of looking the ball into your hands that young guys have to get over in order to be consistently productive?
I'm sure there's I got caught up in your analogy like that. It sounded like an answer. I think you're right on all those. You know what I mean? So.
What were some of the things that he's had to deal with?
Oh.
Running precise routes.
Yeah, but it's all those. I think you're right. And I think not second guessing yourself. That's probably the biggest thing in all those categories, that you don't want to overthink playing. And I think when you trust yourself, you have a tendency to not overthink it because you know I'm good. I know what I'm doing on the route. And so I think that's where, I thought he had a couple where he was patient. Early in route running, once there's contact, sometimes guys will let the defense dictate the depth and kind of get pushed into that, like if it's an out-breaking or an in-breaking route, where I think because he's got the confidence now, he did a nice job on a couple of then straightening it back up and then coming out. And so I think that leads to it. And, on the catching the ball, he had the, two that in his mind he should have had. And, I think you go back, I don't know on the one and I don't ask the kids, they don't go out and say, this is it, I'm going to drop this one. I think he thought there was going to be some contact a little bit early on it, but it's, I think it's that trust of themselves that allows them to settle down to then be able to execute in those areas that kind of we're talking about before.
Jack Cohn only had a few reps on Friday, but how important do you think it is for him to get some game time in case you need him later in the season?
I think it is important, and we thought that we'd get a few more snaps, and then the pick kind of changed the normal way of it. But the first one, we were supposed to have a motion, and he didn't send the guy a motion, and those are all good things for him to have to go through. And why didn't he? Probably there's a little bit of nerves maybe in it. And so I think getting those first snaps for so many kids was really important, and they're always going to remember them, and that means that they value them. And so I think, anytime you can get through kind of a first, then it helps you.
Mike, in the back.
Coach, what do you think of the job that Alex Hornibrook did in his first start of the season?
I thought Alex did some good things, and I think there's some plays that he can be better on, and so overall, I liked the way that he saw the game, and I thought he made some plays, and he gave guys a chance to make plays, and yet I think there's still enough to work on that he's got to focus on and can get a lot better.
Hey, after the tribute to Troy gave to Jack last week on Saturday, just curious, how much influence or impact Jack's had off the field in this month since, and what you hope he's able to contribute for the season to come too.
Yeah, I think that Sitch is always a guy that's going to bring energy, and whether it's a practice or game, continues to do that. And I think he's also smart enough to kind of take those moments and maybe make a subtle coaching point or observation, with a backer, and kind of when we're in this coverage or, when they're running this run play versus defense. So, Sitch hasn't changed who he is. And that you feel good because, he still can bring a lot to this team.
What has Lane Kiffin brought to the Florida Atlantic program?
Yeah, I don't know from the outside. I think there's certainly energy, and I think that in watching their game, I know the score probably wasn't. I'm sure it wasn't what they wanted, but I thought they flew around, and you saw a lot of good football players, and I think that he's brought an energy to him, but that's from the outside looking in and watching tape.
Well, you mentioned the running game, but I'm just curious what you saw in the offensive line in terms of communication, because it looked like Utah State tried to make them think, especially early in the game, and you've got a new center there.
Yeah.
Were there some issues early, and if so, what were you able to do to get them addressed?
No, there was, and in the early games, you don't quite know what all you're preparing for, and I felt like at times they were going to kind of do some things that maybe were a little bit, I don't want to say not sound, but they were going to rob Peter to pay Paul a little bit, and so some of your base rules don't hold up. But I thought the kids worked through it. I think when we struggled, it was as much, in the second run we had, we had two kids go the wrong way and not running the right, but I think once we settled in and did, I thought Tyler did a nice job, and yet, he doesn't have to be, nor should he be the only one to communicate there, and I thought guys did a nice job of kind of sorting through the different looks that they were getting. So I think some good and certainly some things that we've got to clean up.
Is it more difficult to prepare and scout an opponent, coming in with a new coaching staff with only 1 week of game tape, or are you able to still get a pretty good feel for their players and what they're going to try and do?
I think that's always a challenge when you don't know, and I think that's one of the reasons why our approach to every game is first and foremost to focus on the things that we can control, and certainly opponent's a big part of it. And whether you're defending that offense or trying to attack that defense, or have to run a punt return versus this type of punt, you have to know your opponent. But the number one most important thing is that we focus on all the things that we can control, and that is yourself. And so we'll always have that first and foremost in our preparation. Then you got to certainly help the kids be aware of what's to come. But even when you play a team that you've played, same coaches, same coordinators, it could be the same players, it's going to be different. So that's part of the preparation, is knowing there's going to be things that you don't see. You can't prepare for everything. So I think big thing is get the kids to focus on the things they can control, and then we as coaches help guide them and have rules set up and systems in place that can handle whatever it is that's thrown your way.